Very good evening. I'm architect Namrata Mahal. On behalf of Griha Council and UNSW Sydney, I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you. Before we dive deep into today's session, let's get acquainted with the safety arrangements in the Stein Auditorium. TERI is a quality, health, safety, and environment certified organization. In any case of untoward incident like fire, evacuation is required, needless to be said. In case of you are required to exit from this auditorium through the fire exit gate nearest to you without any panic. The auditorium has 7 gates, 4 on the ground floor. There is 1 exit on the stage and 2 exits on the balcony. In case of fire, fire marshals will take positions in the aisle and exit gates to help you to evacuate. With that note, I once again welcome you all for today's plenary session, the Governance Challenge. Globally, governance has shifted from welfare state model towards economic development model, which demands government to be more innovative and strategic in an increasingly competitive world. Governance is now associated with digital technology to develop approaches that make cities smarter. This session intends to run deliberations on developing a governance framework which stimulates multiple sector collaborations and public partnerships with mutual benefits to promote capacity building and entrepreneurship and also nurture community engagement. With that note, I would like to invite all our esteemed speakers and moderator of the session to please come on the dais. Dr. Simone, Leao, Associate Dean, International Built Environment, UNSW, the moderator of our session. Mr. Anand, Iyer, Chief Project Manager, NIUA. Mr. Sanjay, Mitra, former Defense Secretary. Brigadier R.R. Singh, Director General, National Real Estate Development Council. And we have with us Dr. Madhumita Roy, Professor, Department of Architecture, Jadavpur University. A warm welcome to all of you. Thank you. May I request you to please come ahead? We'll have a group photograph and then we begin with the session. I now request Dr. Simone to please take forward the session. Thank you. Oops.
Something it's here but not.
They put it from there.
Yeah, and I can see here, but
This is yours.
yeah. Yes.
Okay. You just have to move. There's a pointer.
Yeah. It's again. No, it's not. Okay. Now it's.
No.
Yes. Come on. Hi, good afternoon. Well, last session before the closing ceremony, and I believe that, like me, you had 2 very stimulating days of discussion. And I think it's very good to finish with a theme like that, governance. We saw along these 2 days discussion, debates about challenge, opportunities, and developments, specifically on energy, water, waste. But still, why many of the current capacity we have is still not implemented. And now I would like to bring a few aspects here about the governance of that. The governance that is needed nowadays to enable that all these new technologies, these new proposals can really be implemented and brought to reality. It's been said here before that governance is definitely very related nowadays with digital technology to develop approach that can make cities smarter. Governance is related to smart cities in many different ways. For my presentation here today, I decided to bring an example. Instead of discussing governance in a more generic and broad conceptual way, I think one of the projects that we had developed in Sydney bring a number of challenges, at the same time opportunities that we have nowadays in terms of governance. This is a project that we developed with the Greater Sydney Commission, which is a metropolitan level strategic planning entity in Australia. And you saw my title in terms of geodesigning cities' future. One of the challenges in creating plans for sustainable urban futures is the ability to work across government agencies and to break down traditional barriers to truly collaborative planning. Typically, metropolitan planning has been carried out by different agencies which are separate in their mandate and by different planning strategies as well. This siloed approach to city planning means that there are problems in the coordination and sequencing of critical projects. And to address this, we've been, UNSW, been investigating the use of geodesign framework and also developing technology and data infrastructure for supporting collaborative and integrated negotiation-based geodesign. Big data provides a robust base for understanding current patterns and current performance, and also produce some good opportunities for testing future projections, but this is under certain conditions, mostly conditions that we have and we know in the present. We believe that it's essential in planning not simply have a data-driven approach, but not to forget the envisioning. Design process that are going to actually to achieve the goals we want. Data-driven might actually show us that we are not performing well. But we have here, during these 2 days, goals of sustainability, equity, livability have been put through. We have to think about envisioning the cities we want, and also in a reverse engineering to think what actions we need to have nowadays and how actually we get this implemented. The geodesign process runs contrary to the linearity of the current design workflow. In geodesign, the design stage is followed by a formation of multiple scenarios, which investigate an assessment of the design's potential impacts before it's carried out to the project phase. This is a reiterative step that identified further information needs and stakeholders concerned that may have otherwise been overlooked. The project I mentioned before, we used the Southeast Sydney case study. For this geodesign process, we got together 32 stakeholders representing different government agencies, academia, organized civil society, and private sector. And they have to envision the region in 2050. They were given some projected drivers of change: population growth, employment growth, demographic change, for example, the process of aging population that we have in Australia and in other parts of the world as well, housing demand, etc. And this group was also supplied with a baseline data and recommended scenarios. And what I'm showing here are some photos of that process. And what I like about showing these photos is that it's not simply about data and technology. We always will have people taking decisions, and they have different backgrounds, different interests, different values, different ideologies. And over 2 full days, this group came with their individual ideas, their individual projects for the area, their values, and they have to share that, they have to discuss, they have to negotiate it. And in this process, it flows through a series of informal debate. And technology and data was instrumental. Along this debate, the design grows in complexity, but it's accompanied by a learning process from a multi-sector sharing of ideas. At the end of 2 days, these are some examples of the framework, the infrastructure used. They have hundreds of projects and policies. And these colorful polygons here, they actually have a lot of information behind that. They mean that something is being proposed to a certain location. And they had to start putting those together and seeing what is complementary, what is contradictory, and analyze in terms of performance. They could actually prioritize, sequence, analyze costs, and then compare costs with revenue. Then basically this data was used, and some models for performance was used along the process. And they could actually have some types of visualization of what they were proposing as well. Important thing about this process is the benefit in terms of how we need to actually to promote collaboration, breaking silos, and sharing data if we want really to get frameworks for governance that really lead to our goals. And here a list of some of the benefits that we got, and this is part, actually, of what the participants actually saw as benefits of being part of this process. Identification of different goals and concerns from different agencies. Development of collective understanding. It's really important that in a framework and in a process like that, the others are exposed and get an understanding of different views as well. The development of scenario-based planning is not simply getting one or the solution, but looking at varied potential scenarios and assess impact to decide. Contribution to foster a data sharing culture, and increasing the capacity of these stakeholders to making more informed solutions. If you'd like to have more details on this project, there is a fresh publication in the Journal of Environment and Planning in September of this year, in which we describe in more details and present the methodology and the results. We are very interested in investigating this approach further, not only in Australia, but internationally, to learn from different contexts. We would welcome opportunities to develop a geodesign workshop in India. Indeed, due to the high impact of that approach, we have now a course in geodesign developed by UNSW in collaboration with the Arizona State University and the King's College London, which are our Plus Alliance fellows. But I would like now to introduce the panel. It's a very distinguished panel from different sectors, always make a contribution for the debate on governance. I would like first to call Mr. Anand Iyer. He is the Chief Project Manager of the National Institute of Urban Affairs.
Does this enable us to actually sit there, or it's obsolete? He's given me a mic over here. I hope they manage. Hear you better? Doubly so. Good evening all. Sparse audience, but that's a governance challenge as well often. Anand, Iyer, I work with the National Institute of Urban Affairs, and you know, I suppose for the last 2 days you had no end of listening about sustainability and all the three bottom lines and all of that, but I'd like to kind of articulate the challenge first when it comes to governance, and then be able to kind of offer, probably fittingly at the end of an event, probably a couple of glimpses of hope or a couple of positive things that are happening. So, you must try and understand that we work only with the urban and only in India, of course, and the city is a strange organism. It needs governance, it needs to be governed, so there is a city authority, a urban local body, but it's a strangely decapitated body in the sense that it does not have overarching control over all the factors or all the resources that have an impact on this one word called sustainability that you would like to see, or a climate action. Therefore, cities are traditionally consumers. They are the demand end of things. But what also happens in a sustainability sphere or in a climate action sphere is that you are also looked upon, because of being singular demand, as being the emitter, as being the source of the emitter. I think scope 3 and all those dialogues. Therefore, you need to administer only a certain geographical area, but you need to rely on resources and permissions that are geographically beyond and jurisdictionally beyond you. So probably in a very quick way, this is the governance challenge. If I look at just the two things that a city administrator has complete authority over, one would be solid waste management, and that's a mountain of a problem, and I mean it literally and figuratively. And the other is probably construction permits, which Professor Roy would probably elaborate on later. These are just the only two things. The river that flows through your city or the road that runs through it, often you cannot control yourself. You would need a revenue department, an irrigation department, or somebody. So you do not have control on either the resources or the use of the resources upon which you depend. So this, in a word, is this. And then the additional issue always in governance is of capacity. The authority has certain officials. They are designated into departments, and these are known departments. You have solid waste, water supply or hydraulics, and wastewater and sewerage and roads and traffic and all of this. Each of them, other than the solid waste and the permits person or the building plan person, needs to liaise with the counterpart departments, which is road and transport department, or whoever else their counterpart departments are. Severely restricted in terms of numbers and technical expertise to tackle with just the technicalities of the problem. So it's just not the number of officials, but the ability of an official to be able to span the breadth of the issue that has become into a problem today. Yeah. So in fact, solid waste management itself takes so much focus. I've heard municipal commissioners say that it's only a fancy title, I am otherwise a waste picker. That's what I spend most of my day on. Which waste bin is overflowing and whom do I need to rush where? So this is it. Just making the best use of time. A couple of things. The session agenda talks and remarks about the smart city mission, and it's interesting, Dr. Leao, to know that the smart city mission in a way kind of brings both the envisioning and the data driven approach together. So one of the first things it kind of said is we understand the capacity constraints, and in a very in a debatable way, but in a bold way, it said we will create another system, another entity that is able to address the problems in the way that we hope it be addressed. And to credit, it said we are not going to take over the city. We are not going to create an alternative system of governance. What we are saying is some things need to be done in a certain way. These may need to be pan-city or across the city initiatives, and these may be in a particular area, and this may be done by a special purpose vehicle which is allowed to hire the kind of resources it feels that the issue needs. And therefore, the smart city SPVs work in very close contact or connect with the city authorities. They are also allowed, because they are not the city authorities themselves, to liaise with all the different departments that are needed to bring to bear on a particular issue. And they have to work with the vision of the city. So they work with the city leaders to set a vision, set what you would like to be, and find the path to it. And the roster of projects links only to those that are measurable and that are objective, and therefore the digital technologies and the entire range, it's a word that it's a universe in itself. All the range of digital technologies that you can bring that enable you to know or measure what you are doing in a certain way. So whether it be waste or whether it be any of the traditional disciplines or new ones. So some of the pan-city kind of measures, the ones that have taken off immediately would be what are called the command and control centers. And I would urge anybody in this audience to enter the first command and control center that you can. And I can only assure you that by no stretch of imagination is it a bunch of TV screens connected to a camera. The amount, the nature and the manner in which the data is processed in these control centers are probably something that should have been done decades ago, but better done now. And some of the impacts we are seeing already, but already the back set, if there is a structure and there is the infrastructure, and then there is the layer that runs the infrastructure. So data and internet technologies are now providing that. There are digital technology words for it, like stack. They provide the stack on which various platforms can run, and each of the platform can collect data according to the nature of the data point. But the stack is established, and that enables the city to operate in an interesting way, and there is a single data officer in charge of this particular stack and the set of platforms. So one is that. And then the projects, of course, happen. So these are pan-city and the digital being the base of it. And then the projects are infrastructure projects with the added element of there being attention to public space design, in sensitive design, good sustainable design, climate friendly design, disabled friendly design, children friendly design. So these are the aspects that the city otherwise could not probably have managed in the routine scenario. Couple of examples that I think we can talk about, and to sign off on the smart city mission, it would be that it sees upon itself the intent to be able to leverage what was already there but was not traditionally possible. So it sees itself just as a catalyst in a city to be able to leverage not just financial resources but technical resources and also knowledge resources that were existing in the city, and bring them together to bear on the particular issue. So the leveraging is an important thing that it can do. Two things that have in front of me in the last couple of years been quite a success. One is a whole set of innovation challenges that we have run, that the smart city mission and the SPVs have been the vehicle, and an innovation challenge around disability, around children, around manual scavenging, around, there's a list of topics, is something that we could not have imagined to be successful in the way in which it has been successful. So probably it is just, both with the smart city mission and otherwise, it's just that it's an idea whose time has come. And we probably doing the things now that should have been done, but it is now that they are seeing light of day. One is that there's also the city's program, CITIIS, run by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs, which allows you to propose projects centered around innovation, centered around public space, and there are parameters of assessment. And innovation being the key, you kind of propose them in another way and leverage funds from the mission. The one interesting thing, and I'd sign off on this, is called the Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework. The Climate Smart Cities Assessment Framework. This is launched by the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. It's an assessment framework that allows a city to know where it stands on the sphere of climate action. So you have the traditional thematic verticals of water, wastewater management, solid waste management, air quality and transport, energy and green buildings. But there are, the indicator is, the assessment framework is done in a very interesting way. There are indicators, of course, but you can also get levels. So there are level 0, there's a level 0 defined, like Master Oogway in the Kung Fu Panda, you know where level 0 is. And then you also have level 1, 2, 3 and 4. So a city can provide the proof, it's a self-assessment first, but if you are unable to provide proof for the other level, you at least know where you stand and what you need to do in order to jump to that level. The proof is vetted by an expert committee. These are people who have run the cities on those particular issues for at least 20 years. And the people who help you collect the data is a project management unit with at least 10 to 15 years experience in knowing what they're talking about. So no proof simply gets by the door. And once the expert committee has kind of validated it, you kind of audit and check as well. And all the data is digital. It's collected through the single data officer. So the data points may be the same. How much electricity do you consume per density? How many energy efficient street lights do you have per given area? You know, and it can get endlessly, but it's been limited to about 30 indicators. So the data points are the same that you have reported elsewhere, but the formula in which the data is used in a very interesting way. Both these things are available in at the website smartnet.niua.org. Yeah, /CSC/cities. Thank you for your time and attention. Thank you.
Well, I would like to introduce now our next speaker, Dr. Madhumita Roy. She is a professor in the Department of Architecture in Jadavpur University, Kolkata.
Hello, good evening everyone. And to start with, that governance in urban settings, challenges. Now the first question is, are we really aware of our challenges in cities, city governance? See, the demand for quality habitat is increasing day by day. And as I discussed yesterday, that demand for quality living for all age groups, catering all the age groups, are increasing day by day. How to cater with that? How to address the list of challenges which is mentioned in the slide of all the ULBs is known to all of you. But I would like to mention two items specifically. See, in all our ULBs, we have this experience that there is an inappropriate and inadequate distribution of manpower, which means that most of our corporations, local bodies are dominated by engineer community. Now, these engineering community actually, what is happening when an architect submits a plan, an engineer actually, he checks all the clauses, whether it is complied in the plan or not. Not only this, there are shuffling situations. One person is deputed from one department to another department. In that way, all might not be having similar sort of experience in dealing the building plan sanction systems. The other important point is lack of political will. And the third point I'd like to mention, that abuse of general rule provisions. People don't like to follow the rules. Now, as we all know, that as per the TNCP Act 1971, the zoning was supposed to be done by through TNCP Act, following TNCP Act. But after the 74th Constitutional Amendment in 1992, all the ULBs are, they no longer bound by these provisions of TNCP Act. Now, these ULBs, they became big fat elephant sort of thing, where there is inadequate manpower and they are given lot of assignments to follow, starting from the preparation of CDP, city mobility plan, city sanitation plan, e-governance, and meeting all the benchmarks set by the Government of India. Who are the game players in the urban governance? Government, landowners, business people, business community, citizens and residents. Now, what are the interests of each of these key players in urban governance? Interestingly, with my 30 years experience in this area, I found that people are never happy with their what is mentioned in the rule. They always need some extra. Landowners, they want extra FSI. Business people, including the professionals, the efficiency of a professional depends on the efficiency, how he could manage extra FSI in a particular project. Developers are always interested in having extra floor area. Now, the primary document used for sanctioning a building plan case is building bylaws, which leads to building rules and regulations. Now, despite of having this very important document, we find it is a fact that 90% of our building stock is unauthorized, which all of us we can see. What is the role of building rules? What is the objective? It is to ensure health, it is to ensure safety, to optimize the energy consumption, convenience to ensure convenience, and to create the imageability of the city. What are the means of control? FAR, FSI, ground coverage, open space systems, height regulations, and the parking standards. Now, what is the user perception about building rules and regulations? Designers, they never they consider it as a legal jargon. They always consider that there is lot of lack of flexibility in the building rules for design interpretation, and the objective of the rule is not cleared. That's why it allows discretion. Owners and developers, too complicated and a cumbersome process which cause delay, ambiguity for projects of various scales and uses, and involve too many departments with conflicting opinions. And the administrators, no foolproof tool for checking. Undue requests due to lack of clarity, indecisions for subjective issues, which contributes actually the whole perception of all, contributes to create a negative image of the government regarding efficiency, transparency, credibility, and above all, the rule of law is under question. Now, if you just look at the pictures, you will find that in the first picture in the corner, this picture, you will find that there is not a single portion left for the plantation. The whole ground area is paved. In the just diagonally opposite corner picture, you will find all the buildings here, they have the approved plans. But none of the buildings are in compliance with the rules. And these are very common scenario in all our metro cities. Now, recently a statement made by actor Pooja Bhatt, I like that statement very much actually. We are living in a fake world. All of us are aware of everything, but somehow we are not ready to accept. And the next thing is that we are living in a me bubble. I am only concerned with my tech. And the third one is we do lot of background conversation as listed by Ms. Sharon Knoll, whether it is right or wrong, we don't know. We question every time. In case it is my building, it is right. In case of others, it is wrong. Find the flaw, not responsible, us and them, either or, not enough. Now, why it is happening? Because these are the values which actually varies from individual to individual. Now, the first one to start with, equity. Now, I am just mentioning one important program. Actually, when in 2005, one housing minister from West Bengal, he wanted to have a transparent authority, that is in 2005 as a part of e-governance project. And thus, he assigned us to prepare the online plan sanction software for the authority. Now, as an architect, academician, I never had any idea about making software because I don't know programming. But immediately I took the challenge because I considered that this would be the lifetime opportunity for an academic architect researcher, because only architect can realize what are the pains in getting sanctions done through municipal bodies. So I took the challenge and we prepared the software. And if we can, that time I thought that if we can prepare the software, if we are successful, then the justice will be given to all the professionals, because in most of the cases, lady architects don't prefer to go to corporations to get the sanction done. As an architect, I failed to get a sanction done ever because I couldn't bribe. So, building plan sanction, as the time is short, I don't want to go into details. Lot of activities and lot of steps are to be followed in actual manual building plan sanction process, and we know all the disadvantages of the manual system. Now, this is what I would like to mention. The will and the dream was there by the politician, by the leader, and he had the faith on the professionals, and we had the honesty to implement the system. So the online plan sanction was prepared, my software was prepared, and it was having two parts. One is data and drawing collection, another is drawing checking. I am talking for the year 2006, that is 13 years back. And the system was developed like this, and it is still running in Newtown, Kolkata. All the flaws and all the irregularities are marked through the software itself, and it is sent to the project owner and professionals. Now, in 2 years, the main important point to be mentioned, that see, when the system was developed in 2006, for 3 years' time, we could not implement the system because no one wanted to have the system in place. No one. Later on, governor had to take the call, and he ordered to, yeah, I am coming, yes. And it is mentioned that I had to take charge of the system as a chief architect in addition to my normal duty, and we completed 550 cases. All the big complexes which are in Newtown was approved by me only with my signature. And okay, it's already over. Now the sustainability term, actually I don't understand. I am totally confused with this sustainability, because see, the green word can be added to all the words which are in the box. Now we in Bengal, we have also green police. So I don't know what is the degree of green. And it is the responsibility of all of us to address the challenges and to maintain and implement it with responsibility. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I would like now to call to the stage Mr. Brig Singh. He's the Director General of the National Real Estate Development Council.
Brigadier Singh. He was a brigadier in the army. Brigadier Singh.
Our fellow panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I think the subject is the sustainability and how we can make sustainable towns, houses. It is more relevant for India because India is one of the fastest growing country, and lot of urbanization is taking place in India. Almost 1 crore people are entering the urban area almost every year. So this is a big challenge for everybody who is responsible for developing the townships. The government has started a new program of smart cities, which probably can take, or also apart from the smart cities, they have also started a program to revamp the infrastructure of the existing towns under the different schemes of the government. While these things are being taken care of, I think the requirement is the redevelopment. Our cities have not been constructed on the basis of sustainability, and they have grown in a haphazard way. The infrastructure is not capable of taking the load which is required to, because of the development, unauthorized development which is taking place in and around the cities. So it is it's an important area where a lot of governance is required to improve the infrastructure, to redevelop the cities where it is required, make smart cities. But more than that is that once our population at the moment, urban population is around 400 millions, which should be touching around 800 millions by mid of this century. So half of the cities have to be constructed, new cities have to be constructed. Therefore, it is important that at least the new cities which are going to come up, whether they are adjacent to the existing cities or they are all green cities, they must be made sustainable. And in sustainability, infrastructure, which consists of powers, water, electricity, sewage, waste management, road management, public management, all these probably is the time that we have to plan it properly. And this area is a big challenge, big governance challenge. Our government has taken a lot of steps to at least transform the real estate sector, to transform the construction sector, and the results are visible. Some of the important reforms which the government has undertaken in the last 4 or 5 years are, one which is the most important is the Real Estate Regulation and Development Act 2016. I think India was being developed not that there was no regulation earlier, but there was no implementation of those rules, regulations, and authorities probably were very careless in implementing it. As a result, the development which has taken place is not sustainable. Now the government has made this Real Estate Regulation Act, which helps both the proper development and also that there is a regulatory authority which has been established, and that authority is responsible to see that the real estate is being developed properly and as per the laid down policies and procedures. Earlier, the developers used to construct without proper land title, without proper land plan approvals, and used to sell the property to the buyers. Sometimes they never sold it, they collected the money and did not give the property to the end user. So this type of activity was going on. To stop all these activities, this Real Estate Regulatory Act, which has come from 1916 onwards, is taking care of all the problems which the real estate was facing earlier. The Act provides that all the money which is deposited by the real estate developers goes to the escrow account, and that money is used only for the construction of that particular projects. It is not siphoned out, it is not taken to any other place, or it is not privately utilized by the developer. So that's a big safeguard that the money used is for the real estate development for which it was collected. and the buyer gets his property in time and in a proper shape. If there is a problem, then the regulator is there to look into the issues and resolve it. If there is a further problem between the buyers and the real estate developer himself or by any other stakeholder, there is an appellate tribunal which can take care of those type of complaints, decide, also give the punishments in terms of financial or imprisonment, etc., which is also there in the Act. So Act, by and large, is very transparent, very systematic, and I think this is the first platform which provides a transparent and honest business in the real estate sector. And in future, probably this will be a great help, especially to the buyers. Second is your GST, Goods and Services Tax, which was just introduced in 2017. The GST, affordable housing GST rate is 1%, non-affordable housing 5%. I think this is the least which is there for any other product. So this is probably a grace given by the government, minimum GST, so that these things can be easily the cost can be cut down, and more people can buy houses, which they, of course, they require, because the housing deficiency in the country is quite a large. Then we have your Insolvency and Transparency Act. That Insolvency Act provides for, if there's a problem with the real estate developers, he can declare himself insolvent, and the rule will and Act will take care of it. So it's transferred to some other body to do the balance of the work. Even in the insolvency, the buyers have also been made creditors. So they become stakeholders in this, and without their permission, the insolvency board cannot act on this, so they are a stakeholder in that particular area. The fourth thing which is there is the Benami property. Benami property is another important issue because many people had lot of property Benami. So after certain notification, these Benami properties, there is a provision, it can be confiscated and sold by the government. Also, for improving the real estate sector, the government has also made a single window approval system. It's not completely active, but work is in process, and at the moment, at least, the building plans in most of the cities are available online sanctions. People can apply online, get the approval online. Most of the cities, at least important cities, have already activated this. But this is not the single window as such, unless until everything becomes one single window, everything is addressed only. Apart from this construction plan, there are many other things, like you have got the aviation clearance, you have got archaeological clearance, you have got fire clearance, railway clearance, PWD clearance, CPWD clearance, defense clearance. So there are many clearances which have to be taken by a developer before starting the work. And all of these take time. But all these can be simplified. Simplified in the manner now, in the aviation clearance, the airport aviation authority has prepared a color-coded map that what is the funnel, how much area is to be left open, which is the area in which the construction can take place, up to what height it can take place, and authorize the local authorities based on that color-coded map to sanction the plan. So this has been simplified. Like that, probably the defense also is doing something, that they are making clear that this is the area under which no construction can take place, and if takes place up to what height and all. So that this type of things, probably the people do not have to run to every individual authorities, but one authority, single authorities, based on the guidelines which have been provided by the concerned authorities, can apply it and sanction the plan. So it makes simple for the simple and faster. So this has also been done. Same thing has been done for archaeological survey. Also, it has been done for most important and difficult is the environmental clearance, because environmental clearance takes lot of time. Maybe in years, 2 years, 3 years time for environmental clearance a developer has to wait for. But now they have also to a certain limit 50,000 square feet or 1 lakh square feet area, built up area. Approval responsibility has been handed over to local authorities. Local authority has been given guidelines by the environmental ministry that these are the guidelines you have to follow. If the map plan fulfills all these requirements, take an affidavit from the developer and clear the map. So this has now come out very helpful for the people who are doing the job, are doing the work, and it has simplified the process and made the life much easier. Also, gentlemen, really, okay, I think I'm seeing the time probably. So I think to create the sustainability, we have to work hard, and there are many things which are required to be done. And this India probably requires all these to be done because ours is a growing country and we have a long way to build lot many things. So for us it is more important. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to call our last speaker today, Mr. Sanjay Mitra. He's the former Defense Secretary and a professor of practice at the School of Public Policy, IIT Delhi.
Good evening. I'll just make a couple of quick points. Sustainability is a big canvas. Governance itself is a very big canvas. So I'm quite glad that we have managed to restrict it to urban governance, and we can, where it seems to be more manageable. Indian urbanization presents a huge challenge on governance issues, and this is exactly the right kind of initiative. We have now the livability index of the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs. We have also the Griha rating system, where you have a fair amount of weightage given to the citizens' participation. I have only one question. Is it becoming too techno? Is it becoming very technocentric? Will it ever become a part of the discourse, particularly the election discourse in these towns and cities where you're going to do these reforms of where you're going to do the ratings of Griha, or you're going to do the livability index? Because unless that becomes a part of the regular discourse, that becomes a part of the regular campaign, it becomes a campaign issue, I'm afraid we are going to live in small islands of excellence and will not be able to replicate it across the various urban bodies, and will not be able to meet our goals of sustainability and sustainable development. Actually, I'd have loved to see many more corporators here in this seminar. There are people of distinguished professional background, there are academics, there are researchers, there are students. I would have liked to see many more corporators who would actually go back with many of these ideas firmly embedded in their heads. Many of these ideas will run counter to their perceptions of power and perception of patronage, but maybe with some more time, some more effort, we could get them to come around to these views. So this is my first big point, that we need to have more elected representatives being involved in these exercises. The second point I would like to make, that we need to spread these to the smaller towns in India. India has many small towns. Most of our initiatives are centered around big towns and the surrounding metros. The small towns have huge problems of sustainable development. In fact, sustainable development is noticeable by its absence in small towns. And maybe it's not a bad idea to reach out to the smaller towns, because we are concentrating all the time on the bigger towns, the kind of town that can attract municipal bonds. But I spent a fair amount of time in a state where most towns will not attract any municipal bond whatsoever, ever, unless we really get down to doing the solid waste management, we get down to doing their water supply, we get down to doing basically like sewage. And in fact, manual scavenging, that it should still be an issue, is a really matter of concern when we talk of sustainability. So these are the couple of big points I wish to make. Thank you very much.
We're already a bit out of the, beyond the time when we have the closing session now. I just would like to thank the panelists for their talks and the views and examples that they brought here. I think we want... Okay, good. I was told that we can get a couple of questions before the first session, and I would like to open for the audience. Please, have the microphone. I know we use.
Good evening, R.K. Sharma, Consultant Head, District Development Authority, Nainital, Uttarakhand. My question is for Brigadier R.R. Singh, sir. Sir, as you emphasize on governments need to be more entrepreneurial or innovative or being some kind to GST application. So I think that there is another obstacle or obstruction in the way of selling the dwelling units in India in form of apartments and flats. That is RERA actually. So it was not discussed here. So with the application of RERA, will it be difficult to get rid of this recession or this downfall we are looking in this, we are experiencing right now?
Gentlemen, this downfall is not because of RERA. The downfall is for many reasons. The most important one reason is your demonetization.
Sir.
You know, everybody knows that the real estate was consuming maximum black money. And that black money is not coming in that, to that extent in the real estate sector now. And nobody wants now, even openly reporting and all, everything has become transparent. So I won't say that it is zero, but it is very less in the real estate sector now. So this is one reason that the liquidity problem in real estate sector has gone down. Second thing is that the your banks, NPA, and non-banking financial companies, their NPA problems, because banks were not directly giving to the developers. They were giving to non-banking financial companies, and non-banking financial companies were giving to the developers. Because once the non-banking financial companies have sunk, this problem has multiplied in the real estate sector, and the basic issue in the real estate sector is the liquidity problem at the moment. The developer does not have money to complete even the existing projects. So this is not because of RERA, but it is because of the liquidity which has been choked for many reasons.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Any other question? Please.
Good evening, all of you. My name is Nikunj, and I am a student of architecture, currently pursuing my bachelor's in architecture from NIT Bhopal. Ma'am, I would like to ask a question from you, and sir, Sanjay sir, I would like to ask a question from you. That I think we have not pointed a very important point here, that is corruption. Corruption at the very base level and political agenda at the very base level of our government system is corroding our whole system. The difference between our legislature and our executives is the executionary is very important. So how we are seeing this thing moving forward as a country, how we should differentiate our projects from political agendas, the politicians that hinder the overall process of development of infrastructure precisely. So as a team and as a executionary of our country, so how problems do you face in that, and how we should remove them from our path? Thank you.
As I was mentioning about this only, that when 13-14 years back, as a part of e-governance project, it was taken up, that online sanction system, it was only because we wanted to remove this corruption agenda. Now, during that time also, I used to say that corruption is not linked with the systems. Systems means whether it is online system or it is offline system. Because, as I could not mention in the presentation, that see, after 14 years' time, from 2011, I am not attached with that system. I am not linked with the system. But I get to know all the details about how the system is running. Now, I got the information, and I am getting information that the system is running, but a lot of corruptions in other ways have cropped up because for running the system. So it is so unfortunate, and we want to have transparency in the ULBs, but these are inevitable. As my experience goes, I can't see any future regarding corruption, how to erode corruption. That's it. Thank you.
I actually would like to bring one. Cities have people to live in. Cities will have people that stay there. As long as people are there, you will have a political representative. As long as there is a political representative, you will have politics. Is not no point saying that you will have a perfect system where technocrats run the world. That is not exactly always a very great system. There are many examples in the past where technocrats ran a very bad world. So maybe, you have to, that's the point I was trying to make. You have a set of corporators here, you try and explain why you need to have a proper solid waste disposal system, why you need a proper landfill, why you need a sanitary landfill, why you can't put it in the domain of the next municipal town and say it is not in my backyard. You need to sensitize, you need to tell them that this is how you're going to live. If you do not do so, okay, let me digress. I mean, 10 years ago, I would not bother about I never heard any discussion regarding quality of air in Delhi. Look at the amount of discussion. It is driving the political agenda. People are responding to it. The courts are responding to it. Road safety, another example. Maybe, 20 years ago, nobody cared. So, the idea your point is well taken. There is corruption. There is corruption primarily because people are not adequately sensitized. But you will also recognize that time has come, and we used to have corruption in things like railway ticket booking. We don't have that now, because IT, information technology, has made that possible. We don't have corruption in many other things. So I think, we need to get hold of the guy who actually makes the political decisions. You can't keep him out of the decision room. You have to put him there. Thank you.
Sir, one sentence, the single window approval system, it is only for that purpose, that once it is single window, online, there is no human touch and everything will be online. You get the approval online, so this will remove the corruption from the channel.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I would like to thank Dr. Simone for beautifully moderating the session, and all our distinguished speakers for giving us an insightful and interesting experiences that you have. I'm sure the participants have learned a lot through your experiences. Dr. Simone, I would like to request you to kindly give the token of appreciation to all our speakers. Mr. Anand Iyer, Chief Project Manager, National Institute of Urban Affairs. A round of applause, please. Mr. Sanjay Mitra, former Defense Secretary. Brigadier R.R. Singh, Director General, National Real Estate Development Council. Dr. Madhumita Roy, Professor, Department of Architecture, Jadavpur University. I would now like to request Mr. Sanjay Seth to please present a token of appreciation to Dr. Simone.
How are you, sir?
Thank you, Dr. Simone. Thank you, Mr. Seth.